Welcome back to the deep dive. Look, our job here is simple. Take the really dense stuff, the complex research, and just boil it down to the clearest, most useful insights for you.
Yeah, we give you the shortcut, but we definitely don't skimp on the depth.
And today, we're tackling something pretty confronting. Our sources point to what might be the single biggest and honestly most counterintuitive block to organizational growth.
It's that uncomfortable truth, isn't it? The one that, well, if you're the leader, it can feel a bit like a personal attack.
Right.
The core diagnosis we're pulling from all this material is this. The leader who works the hardest, the most dedicated one, the one everyone thinks is indispensable. Well, that leader is almost always the organization's invisible brake pedal.
That's the thesis right there.
Yeah.
And our mission today as well, it's critical. We're going to diagnose this specific failure pattern. We're calling it the hero leader pattern.
Uh-huh.
Then we'll quantify the cost because it's staggering, frankly.
Yeah.
And finally, we'll lay out the blueprint for the alternative, the elite architect model.
So the goal is you leave this deep dive not just knowing about the problem, but actually equipped, like ready to start making that fundamental shift right away.
Okay, so what makes this research really grab you is where it comes from. It all started, apparently, from this single, really specific, personal failure moment the author had.
Yeah, he talks about climbing the ladder for decades, becoming the go-to technical expert, the guy with all the answers.
Right, that expert.
And then comes this moment, this really heated boardroom meeting. He's arguing with his director of operations about a proposal he thought was like perfect, flawless, backed by all the data, years of experience.
The irrefutable proof.
Exactly. And this is where the whole system kind of breaks down for him. He's thinking, I've got the facts, I've got the experience, so obviously I have the reason.
Makes sense.
But the conversation was just failing,
Yeah.
getting louder, more personal, and he suddenly saw it crystal clear.
Yeah.
The fight wasn't actually about the data on the whiteboard. It was about how he was communicating it. And crucially, how the other person was hearing it, interpreting it.
So nearly 30 years focused on technical skill, logic, efficiency. And he realizes there's this massive gap.
Huge gap. Social emotional intelligence, the actual mechanics of how people communicate and connect. It was like a giant technical blind spot in his own leadership toolkit.
Wow.
And what's really fascinating here, what hit him in that moment, is this fundamental flaw in how we usually think about leadership communication. We obsess over crafting the perfect message, right? What we say.
Sure, clarity is key.
But here's the kicker. It's actually not what you say that matters most. What truly matters, like fundamentally, is how the other person interprets it.
So if they hear it wrong or it creates resentment.
Exactly. If the interpretation is off, if it breeds confusion or defensiveness, then the efficiency of your perfectly logical argument, your brilliant plan, it just goes straight to zero. The connection fails.
And he kind of reached this really tough conclusion, didn't he? That his whole career focused on being the best individual performer had actually damaged his ability to lead something lasting.
Yeah, something that could outlive him. Because if a system, any system, relies completely on one single person, well, its value is temporary by definition.
He called that a legacy of zero.
A legacy of zero.
Yeah.
Powerful term. And it forces you to ask, why are so many really smart, driven people wired this way?
It's cultural, right? That's what the sources suggest.
Totally cultural. Think about it from when we're kids. School systems, sports, even social stuff. It's all about individual awards, individual recognition.
Be number one, win the debate, get the best grade.
Exactly. We're trained, deeply trained, to chase that powerful feeling, that singular pride of having the reason, being the one who's right.
That is such a powerful insight. We're literally programmed to see success as being the expert, the one with the answer.
Precisely. And this whole socialization process, it leads directly, almost inevitably, to this really flawed definition of what a great leader is. We think it's just the one who has the reason.
Okay, let's really unpack that. Because if we're all sort of conditioned to fight for that reason spot, that instinct doesn't just vanish when you get the corner office, right?
Not at all. It scales up.
And when it scales up in a leadership role, that's when it creates this hero leader.
And this is where the path really splits. You've got the popular road, right? The one everyone talks about, the hero leader. Looks great on magazine covers, working those insane hours.
The 80-hour week warrior.
And then there's this other path, less traveled, way more intentional, the path of what we're calling the elite architect.
Okay, let's dissect the hero leader first. I think we've all worked for this person, or let's be honest, maybe We are this person sometimes.
It happens.
They're the center of everything, right? They genuinely believe they have to be involved in every big decision because, well, only they have the full picture, the deep experience.
Or, crucially, the reason.
Right. And they wear those 60, 70, 80-hour weeks like a badge of honor. It signals indispensability.
Yeah.
But it's not about laziness. It's an operational design flaw, rooted in ego, maybe, or just lack of trust.
And the consequences just ripple outwards. You know, they hit the whole organization. We can see like 4 key characteristics that pretty much guarantee failure in the long run, even if things look okay short term.
Okay, number 1, by centralizing all the important decisions, they instantly become the bottleneck. Give us a real-world example of that.
Okay, think about purchasing. Simple scenario. Your purchasing manager needs to okay a routine order, say $1,000 for parts for a machine that's down. The criteria are clear, documented, standard stuff, but the rule is all purposes over $500 need CEO approval. The hero CEO.
And the CEO is buried.
Buried. In meetings, fighting fires, dealing with a client crisis. So that approval email just sits there for 2 days. A decision that genuinely takes maybe 15 minutes of focused thought now takes 48 hours.
And the ripple effect.
It's huge. Production stops, supply chain gets jammed up, momentum lost. That 2-day delay costs real money and opportunity. The leader is literally the brake pedal.
Okay, second point. When the leader is the only real authority, the team develops. What did you call it? Learned helplessness.
Learned helplessness, yeah. Why should I bother suggesting a better way? Why waste time debating options if I know deep down it's just going to get kicked upstairs to the hero leader anyway and maybe even overturned?
Right. So the team just stops thinking.
Stops thinking critically. Stops using those expensive skills you hired them for. They just become order takers, waiting for the reason to come down from on high. It's a massive waste of talent. We'll put a number on that later. It's shocking.
Okay, third. This one's physical. The hero leader literally cannot take a vacation without their phone blowing up.
Yeah.
Non-stop interruption.
Never truly off, which guarantees, absolutely guarantees, accumulated stress, burnout, and the sources are really clear on this, a huge sacrifice of personal health, family life, all for a company that's frankly running inefficiently because of them.
And the final characteristic, which is almost the saddest, they're actually proud of being indispensable.
Deeply proud. They say things like, I lead by example working these long hours. They think their exhaustion proves their commitment.
But it doesn't.
No, they're just normalizing a toxic culture, a culture where results depend on individual sacrifice, not on having a smart, robust system.
Which leads us to this grim math you mentioned, the formula for tragedy for the hero leader.
Like, we have to redefine what success means. It's got to be about permanence, about legacy. So if we define transcendence, a lasting legacy, as the impact of the system multiplied by the time that system functions without you.
Okay, impact times time without you.
Then the hero leader's equation is just devastating. They might have high impact while they're physically present, sure, but you multiply that by 0 days functioning without them.
And you get legacy of 0.
Legacy 0. The moment they step away, whether they choose to or, well, something else happens, the whole thing collapses.
And there's a really chilling, concrete example of this in the sources. Calçado Canada. This isn't theoretical.
No, this is the real-world cost. Calçado Canada, a generational family business, started back in 1980 by Don Roberto Martinez. Solid company, $15 million annual revenue, 120 employees.
Okay.
And Don Roberto, he was the absolute archetype of the hero leader. Respected, worked incredibly hard. He personally handled negotiations with all the top 10 clients. He signed off on every order over $500, routinely worked 70-plus hours a week, hadn't taken a real vacation in like 15 years. He was the company.
So what happened when that central pillar, Don Roberto, was suddenly gone?
March 15th, 2015. Don Roberto had a massive heart attack. Fatal. And the collapse wasn't gradual. It was immediate. Total.
Oh, wow.
Within a week, managers couldn't prioritize production runs because nobody knew which client deals Don Roberto had prioritized verbally. Accounting was paralyzed. Supplier contracts had handshake agreements nobody else knew about. Decision-making just evaporated.
So the whole thing just stopped.
Ground to a halt. That 35-year-old, $15 million company, literally Don Roberto's life's work, declared bankruptcy. Less than 6 months later, 120 people lost their jobs.
That's staggering. That is the ultimate cost of valuing individual heroism over actual systemic design.
Dedication without design is destructive. Simple as that.
But you said there's an alternative. The elite leader, the architect. How different does that system look?
Radically different. Because the elite leader understands that hero model is mathematically doomed. Their main focus isn't doing the work, it's designing the systems for the work.
Okay.
They design what we call protocols of non-intervention PNIs. The whole point of these is to deliberately transfer real decision-making power down the chain to the lowest competent level. They refuse to work in the system. Their job is working on the system.
So their characteristics must be the complete opposite of the hero.
Exactly the inverse. They typically work a focused, standard 40-hour week. Why? Because that time isn't spent firefighting. It's dedicated entirely to strategy, innovation, and development. Building the next version of the system, not just running today's version.
And their measure of success. That's the key difference.
It's the ultimate test of leadership, really.
Wow.
They measure their success by how well the system functions without them. They're proud of being dispensable because it validates the strength of their design.
And the gold standard example for this kind of thinking globally has to be Toyota.
Toyota is the perfect case study. Their incredible success over decades isn't tied to some single, charismatic CEO figurehead, never has been.
It's the system, the TPS.
It's entirely built on the Toyota production system. And what is the TPS, really? It's just an incredibly sophisticated, constantly evolving collection of PNIs. Think about it. Taiichi Ohno, one of its main architects, died back in 1990.
Right.
Yet the system keeps running, keeps making money, keeps improving itself more than 35 years later. That's a legacy of infinity, infinite potential.
That's the goal. Okay, so for anyone listening right now who's maybe feeling a little uncomfortable recognition, wondering where they sit on this hero architect spectrum.
Yeah, that uh-oh moment.
The sources give us a really sharp diagnostic tool. Let's run through the tests of the 4 definitive questions. Ready?
Let's do it. Question 1, and you got to be brutally honest with yourself here. Can you take a full 2 weeks of vacation completely unplugged, no checking the phone, no sneaking emails without the company falling apart or needing your input?
2 full weeks, totally disconnected. Question 2, can your direct reports, the people on your immediate team, make genuinely complex operational decisions without escalating to you? We're talking things like approving non-standard discounts, authorizing significant purchases, handling major customer complaints. Can they do that on their own authority?
Good examples. Question 3. Do you consistently have blocked out and protected in your calendar 10 to 15 hours every single week dedicated purely to strategy, innovation, and long-term development? Not just, I hope I find time, but scheduled, sacred time.
And finally, question 4. Do your best people, your high-potential employees, see a clear, documented path for growth and promotion within your organization? Is that path actively used and visible?
Okay. So if you answered no to 3 or even all 4 of those questions, the diagnosis from these sources is pretty stark.
You're operating as the hero leader.
You're the bottleneck. You are absolutely bleeding value. And that bleeding isn't just some abstract concept. It's quantifiable, severely quantifiable.
Okay, and this is where we need to talk numbers, because saying bleeding value almost sounds too soft. This part of the deep dive is where we put a dollar figure on the damage caused by these hero behaviors.
And these are costs that, crucially, almost never show up as a neat line item on your P&L. That's why they're invisible. They're hidden in inefficiency.
So what are we talking about?
Well, the sources pulled together an aggregate study. They looked at 15 common hero leader behaviors in a typical company, say around 50 employees. And the combined invisible cost comes out to, well, it's pretty staggering. $29,648,150 annually.
Oh, wait, nearly $30 million?
Over the period studied, averaging out to almost $2 million in lost opportunity and wasted effort every single year for that size company.
$2 million a year, just gone.
Yeah.
Because of leadership stock.
Gone. It's the cost of bad or slow decisions, lost talent walking out the door, time just evaporating into waiting and rework.
Okay, I need to understand how that $2 million annual figure breaks down. It sounds enormous. Let's talk about the biggest mutis, the wastes drawing from lean thinking that the hero leader generates.
Right.
What are the top offenders?
Right. Let's focus on the 3 most expensive ones. We'll start with the most obvious symptom of that bottleneck we talked about, wait time, ESPRA. This is literally the financial cost of everything needs my approval.
Okay, but how do you put price on waiting?
You calculate the cost of lost opportunities. Let's take a mid-size B2B company again. If their sales team loses, say, just 15 potential deals a month, simply because the necessary discount or customization approval gets stuck in the CEO's inbox for 2 days, while the competitor gets their approval back in 2 hours, you lose that sale, flat out. assume an average deal value and margin. That lost opportunity just from wait time can easily cost that company $1,440,000 a year.
Wow. So that money isn't just delayed, it's vanished. The hero leader is literally costing thousands every time they become the approval bottleneck.
Every single time. It grounds that $2 million figure pretty quickly, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, the second, massive waste, unused talent. Talento no utilizado.
This one is just painful. It happens when the leader refuses to delegate the interesting, challenging decision-making tasks. They live by that mantra, it's faster if I just do it myself.
Right.
So you end up with, say, a highly skilled engineer, brilliant problem solver, paid top dollar, who's only allowed to execute tasks that the hero leader has already completely defined and micromanaged.
So you bought a race car, but you're only driving it to the grocery store.
Exactly. You're using maybe 30% of their actual capability, their potential, and that creates deep, deep frustration, especially among your best people.
And frustrated people leave.
They leave. So you combine that chronic underutilization with the high turnover rate of those ambitious, bored employees, plus the cost to replace them, retrain the new person, the lost productivity during the gap. The sources calculate that cost at around $2,360,000 annually.
Another huge number.
Okay.
Third big waste. Recurring defects, defectos recurrentes. This isn't just about poor quality, it's systemic.
It's systemic failure driven by the culture. When the hero leader's first reaction to a mistake is always, okay, who screwed this up? Who's responsible for this mess? That blame culture.
It shuts down learning.
Completely. It prevents any real root cause analysis, like using the 5 whys. Because why would anyone admit to a mistake or point out a flaw in the process if they know they'll just get punished?
So mistakes get hidden.
Hidden, covered up, swept under the rug,
Yeah.
until they blow up into huge crises that can't be ignored. Because the system that allowed the mistake was never fixed, the same errors just happen again and again, endlessly. The cost of all that rework, the constant crisis management, the sheer inefficiency of repeating the same failures, it's estimated around $905,000 a year.
Okay, so those are the big operational wastes.
Yeah.
But we have to connect this back to the people, to that idea of the emotional salary, the invisible damage.
Absolutely critical connection, because the research is clear. 70% of an employee's decision to stay or leave isn't about the paycheck. It's about the non-monetary stuff, the emotional salary.
And the hero leader just tanks that.
Systematically demolishes it. Across the 7 pillars of emotional salary, the average erosion under a hero leader is a shocking, and that is their 66%. 2/3 wiped out.
We talked about autonomy and mastery getting hammered like a 60% hit because all decisions are centralized. What other pillars get destroyed?
Well, think about vision of the future. If the hero leader is the system, where's the growth path for anyone else? If the CEO is the bottleneck, the people right below are blocked too. There's nowhere to go.
Right, no clear upward path.
Then there's recognition and belonging. When the leader hogs all the credit for wins and deflects all the blame for losses, the team feels invisible, unappreciated, like cogs in a machine, not like part of something meaningful.
But you mentioned the most dangerous pillar, erosion, the one that guarantees those recurring defects keep happening. Psychological safety.
This is the bedrock. Psychological safety is feeling safe enough to speak up, to ask a question, to admit a mistake, or flag a problem without fearing you'll be humiliated, penalized, or fired.
And under the hero leader.
It gets obliterated. The erosion averages netting 76% because the leader's instinct is always to find fault, to punish the individual whose head rolls for this. The team learns very quickly. Silence is survival.
So small problems fester.
They fester. They get hidden until they become massive, costly crises. And here's the punchline. When your best people quit, they're usually not leaving for that 15% pay bump down the street. They're leaving to find a place that actually values their autonomy and offers basic psychological safety. They're leaving for a higher emotional salary.
Okay, so we have these huge quantifiable costs, this destruction of the very things that make people want to stay and contribute. And yet, companies pour millions into these big established improvement systems. ISO, Lean, Six Sigma.
All the time. Big investments.
But the sources are adamant. These systems usually fail under a hero leader. Why? What's the core reason?
It's almost like a law of organizational physics. The failure equation is unavoidable. System designed for improvement plus leader acting as a brake, predictable failure.
The leader undermines the system.
Fundamentally, the system wants to improve the process, but the hero leader is instinctively driven to protect the status quo specifically, the status quo of their own indispensability. The two goals are incompatible.
Okay, let's take the big ones. Why does something like ISO 9001 often fail in practice?
ISO, or similar standards like IATF in automotive, they demand documented, standardized processes, consistency, predictability.
Right.
They fail because the hero leader cannot resist making exceptions. The moment a big, important client calls and asks for something outside the standard process, what does the hero do?
They make the exception. This customer is special.
Exactly, make it happen. That single act, done to satisfy one customer in the short term, often driven by the leader's own need for recognition, by the way, instantly tells the entire team, that big, expensive process manual, it doesn't really matter. My opinion, case by case, is what actually counts. The system loses all legitimacy.
Okay. And lean manufacturing. The whole point of lean is to eliminate those wastes we just talked about. Why do the sources say 70% of lean implementations fail within the first couple of years?
Because lean, at its core, requires transferring real authority to the frontline teams. And the hero leader is just structurally incapable of sustaining that level of trust.
Give an example.
Take end on. The cord or button on the assembly line that any worker can pull to stop the entire line if they see a quality problem. It's fundamental to lean quality control. The operator must have that authority.
But the hero leader sees the line stopping.
And they panic. They see the short-term dip in output numbers. They get nervous about efficiency targets, and what happens? After maybe 3-6 months, they start to claw back that authority. They'll say, okay, you can still pull the cord, but you need supervisor approval first. Or even worse, look, don't stop the line anymore. Just flag the issue and we'll deal with it later.
They revoke the trust.
They revoke the authority. The team immediately sees, okay, the boss doesn't actually trust the system and they don't trust us. And boom, the whole culture of continuous improvement, of frontline ownership just collapses. That 70% failure rate is primarily driven by that leadership behavior.
It sounds depressingly similar for Six Sigma.
It is. Six Sigma needs clean, reliable data to find and eliminate defects. But if the hero leader has created that culture of fear, nobody reports the real defect numbers accurately. The data itself gets corrupted.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Precisely. But the even bigger failure point is often psychological. When the Six Sigma black belt does their analysis and finds the root cause of variation or error, and that points to something structural.
Like a process the leader designed. Or the leader themselves being the bottleneck.
Exactly. The hero leader resists. They push back against the finding. They refuse to implement the change because it threatens their control or exposes their role in the problem. They won't remove the brake because they are the brake.
Wow. It really is a system designed to fail from the top, which implies the way we usually measure success, like with the balanced scorecard, must be fundamentally flawed too. You mentioned a radical update needed there.
Yeah, the traditional balance scorecard, BSC, is a good idea in principle, but that fourth perspective, learning and growth, usually gets it wrong.
How so?
It typically measures surface-level stuff, transactional symptoms, things like number of training hours completed or certifications earned.
Which doesn't mean much if the culture is broken.
Exactly. Hours spent in training doesn't fix a psychologically unsafe environment or a leader who won't delegate. Those are outputs, not the root causes of performance.
So the sources argue we need to swap those simply metrics for causal metrics, a radical balanced scorecard update.
That's the term. We have to replace those easy-to-count transactional metrics with metrics that actually measure the health of the underlying culture, the things that enable high performance. It's about measuring the emotional salary engineering.
Okay, so what should Perspective 4 measure instead? What are these causal metrics?
Things like the average score across the 7 pillars of emotional salary, the actual number of active protocols of non-intervention PNIs being used, the measured rate of team autonomy, how many decisions are they making independently, and crucially, the NPS internal score, the net promoter score for your own employees. How likely are they to recommend working here?
That completely flips the script. The causal chain isn't top-down financial results trickling down. It's bottom-up.
Absolutely. The new causal chain is undeniable, and it flows like this. Invest in emotional salary, first right arrow, that creates the safety and motivation for teams to proactively eliminate waste, right arrow, which naturally drives sustainable process efficiency, right arrow, which reliably improves customer satisfaction, right arrow, which then finally delivers the outstanding long-term financial results.
Now, wait a second. You mentioned earlier the source documents a case study with, frankly, unbelievable ROI following this chain.
Sure.
Something like 27,740%. That sounds astronomical, especially if you're starting with soft stuff like emotional salary. Where does that massive return actually come from, according to the source? Is it just stopping people from quitting?
That's a really important question. And no, it's not just one thing. The source breaks it down. That insane ROI comes from the aggregate effect of fixing the whole chain. The initial investment is actually tiny, mostly just the leadership time spent designing the first few P&Is.
Okay.
The massive return comes from hitting three things at once. One, you stop bleeding that $2 million a year in invisible wastes like wait time and rework. Poof, gone.
Right, plugging the leaks.
Two, you dramatically reduce or even eliminate the turnover of your high performers. That saves huge amounts on recruitment, onboarding, training, and lost productivity.
Keeps the talent you paid dearly for.
And three, you unleash innovation and agility. When you have a team that feels trusted, autonomous, and psychologically safe, they start solving problems and finding opportunities you, as the leader, never even saw. The ROI is so high because the starting point, the hero leader system, which is so incredibly inefficient and costly to begin with, you're removing massive friction.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the hero leader trap, we've put a multi-million-dollar price tag on the damage, and we see why the usual fixes often fail. The solution, the operating system for this elite architect model, is these protocols of non-intervention, or P&Is.
Yeah, and we really have to stress a P&I is not just another procedure manual gathering dust on a shelf.
Right. It's different how?
It's a system of decision. Think of it as cultural engineering. Its sole purpose is to transfer real actionable authority down to the team, but within very clear objective boundaries. A standard procedure tells you what steps to follow. A P&I tells you what level of decision you're authorized to make. Big difference.
Okay, that makes sense. And for a P&I to actually work, to be effective, it needs 6 specific ingredients,
Yeah.
right? It's DNA.
Exactly. 6 non-negotiable components. First, you need a clear trigger, disparator. This is the specific, measurable, observable event that kicks the protocol into action, like client requests a refund over $100 or raw material delivery is more than 48 hours late. It can't be vague.
Quantifiable event. Got it.
Second, the owner, DUA SECRE, one single person who has a genuine authority to execute the decision defined in the P&I, and, critically, a named sub-owner as a backup. Authority can't be fuzzy or shared for a P&I to work. One owner.
Clear ownership. Okay. Third, you said this is the heart of it.
This is the absolute core. The minimum operational performance, MDO. This is where the actual delegation happens. It's the set of objective criteria, always written in that clear binary format. If this specific condition is met, then you are authorized to take this specific action.
Ah, the if-then statement.
Exactly. This completely eliminates the ambiguity, the friction of the hero leader saying things like, just use your best judgment.
Which, as you said, usually means use my judgment, but I won't tell you what it is.
Precisely. The MDO provides concrete guardrails. Okay, fourth component, the flow. FLOD decision. This is just a simple visual diagram, like a flowchart, mapping out the binary yes-no decisions based on the MDO. Anyone should be able to follow it easily to arrive at the authorized outcome.
Makes it easy to follow. Fifth.
Fifth is the critical control point, PCC. This is the built-in automatic auditing mechanism. The elite leader still needs to verify that decisions made under the P&I are happening correctly, but, and this is key, they audit after the fact and without intervening in the decision itself.
How does that work?
It's often just a simple digital log, maybe a required field in the CRM that captures which MDO rule was applied, or a quick notification. The leader audits the system's performance, not the individual person's judgment call in the moment.
Auditing the system, not the person. Okay, and sixth, the final piece.
The safety valve. Valvulo de escape. This is absolutely crucial. It's the defined mechanism for handling the truly weird, exceptional cases, the situations that genuinely fall outside the if-then criteria defined in the MDO.
So the system doesn't just break when something unexpected happens.
Exactly. But even more importantly, the safety valve is designed to trigger a feedback loop. When an exception occurs, it forces a review, ensuring the P&I itself gets updated and evolves over time. It builds learning into the system.
Okay, let's make this concrete. You mentioned P&I D001, delegation of discounts, which directly attacks that huge time waste.
Yeah.
How did that specific protocol codify the MDO, the IFM part?
Right. So instead of every discount needing the sales directors or CEOs sign off, P&I D001 gave the sales manager clear objective authority via the MDO. It looks something like this. If the profit margin on the deal is greater than 25% and the client is a recurring customer right there, then you, the sales manager, are authorized to approve a discount up to 15% immediately. No further approval needed.
Simple, clear, objective. Authority with limits.
Exactly. Now, if the margin was only 24% or if it was a brand new client, those conditions aren't met. The safety valve kicks in and that specific case escalates for a higher level review. But most routine cases are handled instantly.
And the result of just implementing that one P&I.
Staggering. For about 90% of discount requests, the approval time plummeted from 1 to 3 days down to literally 15 minutes. That's a 99.5% reduction in wait time, just like that.
Incredible efficiency gain.
But it wasn't just efficiency, it healed the culture. The sources note that the sales team's turnover rate dropped dramatically from 22% down to 12% because suddenly those key pillars of the emotional salary, autonomy, and psychological safety were restored. The managers felt trusted, capable, empowered.
Wow. That single P&I had huge ripple effects. Which brings us to the final piece of this P&I architecture. The meta P&I. The system's immune system.
Yes, the P&I E001. Extraction of lessons learned. This is the protocol that ensures the entire system keeps improving. It's the engine of continuous improvement.
How does it work?
Whenever an error occurs, or when an exception triggers that safety valve on any other P&I E001 mandates an immediate 5 whys root cause analysis. But, and this is non-negotiable, it's done without blame. The focus is 100% on the process or system that allowed the error or exception.
Find the system flaw, not the scapegoat.
Precisely. And the output of that blame-free analysis isn't a punishment. It's a documented recommendation to update the relevant P&I, adjusting the MDO, clarifying a trigger, improving the flow. The system literally self-corrects and evolves based on real-world feedback.
So the elite leader doesn't have to constantly push for improvement.
No, they just ensure P&I E001 is rigorously followed. The system itself demands and drives its own improvement automatically. It becomes self-healing.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've diagnosed the hero leader as this systemic brake pedal.
Yeah, the bottleneck hiding in plain sight.
We've quantified that invisible cost millions slipping away annually. And we've laid out the blueprint, these protocols of non-intervention, as the way to fix it by rebuilding that critical emotional salary.
And it's important to stress the journey from hero to architect. It's not about finding an extra 20 hours a week or waiting years for some magical transformation.
Right, it sounds daunting, but the sources say.
The sources are really clear. This path is achievable. You can make significant progress in just 30 days of focused effort. We're talking maybe 15 to 19 hours total dedicated time to design, launch, and just tweak your first critical P&I.
So the time investment isn't huge, but the impact.
The return is potentially explosive, as we saw. It's about focused effort, not brute force hours.
But we have to end with the ultimate warning, the cautionary tale that really underpins all this research.
Yeah.
Circling back to the author's own story.
Yeah, his personal experience, grinding out those 65-hour weeks, building what he later realized was a legacy of 0, and then suffering a major heart attack at just 48 years old.
The physical cost is real.
It's absolutely real. That seductive pride of being indispensable, of being the hero, it will eventually cost you your health, your relationships, your peace of mind, and ultimately your legacy.
So the final question for everyone listening.
The provocative thought you really need to wrestle with is this. The question isn't, can I afford to spend 15, 20 hours transforming my leadership approach? The real question is, can I afford the consequences of not transforming?
Because every extra hour you work.
Every single hour you work over a standard focused week as a hero leader. It isn't proof of your commitment. It's quantifiable evidence of your system's inefficiency. It's a symptom of the disease.
So is all that effort, all that sacrifice, building something fragile, destined for a legacy of 0? Or are you consciously building the architecture for a legacy of infinity?
The choice and the urgency to start that transformation, it really rests entirely with you.
Maybe start small.
Absolutely. We encourage you. Just identify one recurring bottleneck this week, that $500 approval, that discount request that always gets stuck, and just try drafting the MDO for it, the ITHIN statement. That's the first step.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. Some serious food for thought there. We'll see you next time.